Ionis Arca.
With 2018 coming to an end, I have to say that this year was one of the strongest years for video games in a while, with many highly anticipated games delivering on the hype. While I haven't been able to play all AAA games this year, and not to mention the countless indie titles that also deserve our attention, in this video I'll share my thoughts for the Game of the Year. So let's just jump right into it with two of my runner-ups. As a huge fan of Spiderman, it was great to see Insomniac Games do the character justice. They nailed the web-slinging, villains, and characters that make Spider-Man so popular. I'm glad they didn't focus on the origin story, and dropped us into the universe where Spidey is already the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man we all know and love. Check out my full review of the game in the description below. The new God of War from Sony Santa Monica gave a new life to one of my favorite franchises that started way back on the PS2. By the time God of War Ascension released in 2013, the game started to feel it was getting stale. The change of perspective and shifting to Norse mythology paid off on all fronts. We got to see another side of Kratos, while still being able to see him unleash his Spartan rage in epic battles. Check out my battle with the hardest Valkyrie on the hardest setting in the description also. This leads me into my thoughts for the Game of the Year. No surprise, my pick, hands down, is Red Dead Redemption 2. I've played a lot of games this year, and even got a Platinum Trophy for both Spider-Man and God of War, but with that said, I have to disagree with the recent Game Awards and IGN, because in my opinion, Red Dead Redemption 2 is easily the best game of this year, the best game of this console generation, and the best game I've ever played. While the story and narrative is like no other, there were certain aspects of the game that were not the best. For example, while the action is a blast and fast-paced, the controls during firefights in tight spaces still remind me of Grand Theft Auto 4 that first utilized the cover-based mechanic. While you can overly rely on cover and avoid being shot, it's in your best interest to take out the enemies as quick as you can while moving from cover to cover, as often companions that join you in firefights will be killed, causing you to fail the mission. That doesn't mean your companions get in your way. The AI is smart and will actually be helpful when taking down large groups of enemies, making it feel more realistic. I suggest turning off the aim assist right away so that gameplay becomes more challenging and rewarding as a result. Other than some stiff controls and wanting Arthur to move faster in camp and other areas, I can't find many other faults with Red Dead Redemption 2. I don't agree with the criticism that the game is slow to start or drags in some spots. Maybe this applies if you are cramming the game and trying to finish in a week or a few days to write a review. But there was a lot of variety in each mission, and they added to the story or character development that made the payoff at the end even more worthwhile. While Rockstar Games used a lot of mechanics from previous GTA and other games already in its catalog, Red Dead Redemption 2 is in a league of its own. In previous GTA games, I would say the shootouts became stale after a while, mainly because of the cover-based mechanics. Naturally, you would end up popping in and out of cover, waiting for the enemy to predictably step out of their cover and into your crosshairs. Red Dead Redemption 2 does a couple things that make the action and firefights more engaging. When in combat, you feel and experience your weapons are less accurate, and instead of a dot indicating where you will hit, there is a larger circle around it that becomes smaller as you hold down the R2 button to aim. I love this mechanic because if you are getting closer to your target, you can quickly fire your weapons, still being able to hit them. But if you are far away, you will likely miss if the circle is too wide. So after popping out of cover, you will need to aim for a second or two, exposing yourself to your enemies. This is the same with rifles, and the second it takes to aim your weapon makes it that much more gratifying when you are able to land your hit, especially headshots. You can hip-fire revolvers even more quickly, while less accurate. That had me truly feeling like a gunslinger in an old western. My favorite addition to the firefights, and immensely satisfying, is when the camera slows down and zooms up on a fatal shot once in a while, allowing yourself to breathe a little before getting back into the action. While taken from Grand Theft Auto 5, the first-person perspective also returns, but this time at launch, opening up a whole new way to tackle an encounter for those who don't like the cover-based mechanics. For those that haven't played the original Red Dead Redemption and think that this is just GTA on a horse, you owe it to yourself to play this game. The tone is more mature and realistic. Grand Theft Auto is known for having crazy, over-the-top, offensive humor and characters that are often satires of cities and people they're based on. Of course, you still have amazing firefights against scores of enemies, and your gang is as diverse as it gets. but the story always felt serious with consequences on the line. The writing and the voice acting is up there with the best, and the game finds a way to add a lot of humor to the dialogue, random encounters, and side missions. My favorite side mission was helping a Frankenstein-like mad scientist bring a machine to life as he experiments with electricity. Many early reviews of the game do not do it justice. There is so much to do and discover in the game that just beating the game's main story is only a fraction of what the game has to offer. I've invested more than 100 hours and still encountering new things I haven't seen before. For example, I recently encountered a Klansman meeting while hunting at night and discovered a cave behind a waterfall filled with bats. I would say that the story, dialogue, and characters were better in Red Dead Redemption 2 compared to God of War. Both games did a fantastic job of building onto the existing lore of their previous installments, while also improving and refining aspects that made them popular in the first place. I love the story set up in God of War and look forward to see where the developers take the relationship between Kratos and Atreus. But I've got to give it to Red Dead Redemption 2 for telling a complete story that had me more invested and was able to conclude in an extremely satisfying way. I wanted to immediately replay the original Red Dead Redemption, and I applaud Rockstar Games for taking the risk and portraying the events that took place before the original game. While you don't need to play the first game to enjoy the second, playing the original first gives the game's ending even more emotional weight, and you'll see familiar faces from the original. The new game also leaves off just where the original began. What the developers absolutely nailed, and my favorite thing about Red Dead Redemption 2, was how they succeeded in creating an engrossing world that truly gave players the freedom of choice. Player choice is used a lot nowadays, but this game takes it to a whole new level. Not only the simple good and bad decisions that affect your morality during the story, but the option to play the game your way, and respecting, while also rewarding, the player's curiosity with its game design. While the game introduces you to mechanics steadily throughout, you can choose to utilize or completely ignore these mechanics. You can go through the entire game not returning to a vendor to buy supplies, and instead crafting and looting everything you need. You can partake in doing side quests, bounties, interacting with your gang members, customizing your clothing, hunting or fishing, and the list goes on. You can embrace your inner outlaw and rob banks, stagecoaches, trains, or even people walking down the street. You can help your gang as much as you want, or ignore it altogether with no negative consequences to your story. If you do help out, you are rewarded with conveniences like stocking up on ammo, medicine, or food at the camp. Even more, you can complete challenges, find collectibles, and filling out the compendium are all things that encourage you to explore what the world has to offer apart from the main story. It boggles my mind that so many people and developers worked on parts of the game that most players would not even encounter or experience. My curiosity to collect hats led me to track down all the legendary animals and perfect pelts, highlighting the variety of wild animals and birds scattered across the map. The game even has an alternate ending. What more can you ask for? All this, and I still have yet to mention Red Dead Redemption 2 Online, that gives players more content to play for free with other players. Personally, my favorite games are story-based single-player games, and I have a preference towards RPGs. Yet another thing that Red Dead Redemption 2 nailed was character progression. While your character's attributes, such as health, stamina, and deadeye, improve based on how often you engage in certain mechanics, there was never a point that the game became too easy as a result. I often play many games with RPG elements on the hardest difficulty because I like to do all the side missions and often end up easily outgearing content by halfway through the game. Red Dead Redemption 2 avoids this trap by having its difficulty just as flexible as its overall experience. You can choose to turn off the assisted aiming feature in the options, choose to stock up on equipment before missions, or choose to use Deadeye as much or as little as you want. The game also gives you the option to restart at checkpoints, or restart the entire mission if you die. One complaint I have with newer games is that they reduce the challenge by having a checkpoint feature that makes the game too easy by having frequent and invisible checkpoints everywhere. However, this game solves that issue by giving the players that option to restart from the beginning while being able to skip all cutscenes. There are also items that you can purchase or craft that increase your carrying capacity, the rate at which your attributes increase, and other perks. The game has many RPG elements that are blended perfectly into the core of this game. Red Dead Redemption 2 was a perfect mix of action, humor, music, and deep gameplay mechanics that surpassed all of my expectations. While the original Red Dead Redemption was good, there were times where I felt that it did get repetitive and it wasn't able to keep my interest like this game did. I wasn't a fan of westerns before, but this game has hooked me and I can't stop playing it since I got it on release day. I can easily spend another 100 hours replaying missions, getting the Platinum Trophy, and probably still not have experienced everything that this game has to offer. So I know I got a bit carried away, but that's why without a doubt, Red Dead Redemption 2 is the game of the year. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Which game did you like better, Red Dead Redemption 2 or God of War? Or what would you pick for your game of the year? Wishing you guys a happy new year, and see you all again next time.